Oh, hi. Sorry, I couldn't hear you there a second.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah. Okay, I got you.
All right, you just fine.
I've muted the stream. I have to say your cats are very pretty. Okay.
They are objectively perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, they've been the highlight of pretty much every stream I've ever watched. I have to say. Now, I have to say very quickly, there might be a slight chance of my internet clunking out. So as I'm speaking, it'll just stop me from speaking. The only thing I have to do for a fix is just close the call and re-enter it. That would be and it just fixes itself. I don't know why it does it, and it doesn't do it often, but it might do it just as a heads up.
Gotcha. Well, I will try not to panic, but no promises. I'm a very flighty kind of guy. So,
okay, no worries.
Could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. So, hi, my name is George, or I'm known on Twitter as Richard. So, I am a military history third year at the University of Kent. I'm finishing my degree now. I'm almost done, thankfully. And I have done quite a bit of research on Golden Dawn, which is a Greek neo-Nazi party, and I've spoken with Roserist actually on Golden Dawn, because it's just such a massive topic. I wish I could call myself a 100% expert that I know everything, but books have been written on this, and my memory, while good, isn't perfect. So I will try to do it justice.
That's quite all right. So this is a very complicated subject, and I have an audience of wily rapscallion 15-year-olds. So you're probably going to want to go into slightly less detail than you would otherwise be used to, or to at least familiarize us with the broad strokes before I ask clarifying questions. So as I understand it, and I guess I'll kick this off, just recently there was a trial held in Greece of the Golden Dawn Party, or at least in leadership of that party, and it is, being a neo-Nazi party, the largest trial that we have had of a Nazi group since the Nuremberg trials in 45. Yes.
Yeah, largest trial since Nuremberg. 69 defendants originally, 68 by the end because one of them died, I think for unrelated reasons.
Oh, 1946. Sorry.
Yeah, but the trial has actually been going on since 2015, and the investigation was started in late 2013, essentially. The trial only concluded in October 2020. And thankfully, the court ruled in the favor of democracy in Greece.
That's good.
And it was a complicated trial, to say the very least, because of certain limitations that the Greek political system imposes and certain rules that are counterproductive. For example, and this is pretty much the major one, there are no banned ideologies. It doesn't matter if a party is undemocratic, you cannot go against them. You cannot persecute them on that basis. So you want to have a Nazi party in parliament, that's fine as long as you get the votes. And this was not intended as a rule to help Nazi parties. It was initially meant to be a rule to help parties on the left as well that had been systemically oppressed and shunned from politics ever since the years of the dictatorships of Greece. I suppose we should first actually give some overview on Golden Dawn and its kind of history.
Yeah, I'm reading right now, or I'm showing on stream, an NPR article which briefly touches on that. It was founded about 40 years or so ago, that it was overtly neo-Nazi and full of avid Holocaust deniers, and that it rose to prominence significantly after the Greece's debt crisis, which, of course, economic crisis is an excellent way for fascists to recruit.
Yeah, I have this as kind of one of my conclusions, that beware lefty accelerationists. Sadly, the fascists have a way easier time organizing in times of turmoil than
Yeah.
than we do. So don't break down the system, because when the system broke down in Greece, we went from having a Nazi party at 0.3% in 2009 to having them elected in parliament with 7% of the vote in 2012, which is, to put it frankly, in a democracy that has coalitions and many small parties that end up in power, terrifying. 7% would be the equivalent of, say, a Nazi party in the United States getting 30% of the vote. It is massive, and their rise was meteoric. So yeah, they started off in the 80s, and they were basically a group of neo-Nazis. They were funded by this guy Michalogliakos, who was a member of like the youth group of the Greek military dictatorship, the junta, that lasted between 1967 and 1974. And it started off as a magazine, a Nazi magazine, kind of like Stormfront, but worse. And they started like gathering up members, and they were doing those like small rallies indoors and meetings where they would sell Mein Kampf to people that were coming in. They would have swastikas hanging off the walls. They would speak in front with a backdrop of swastikas and doing Hitler salutes to the crowd. And of course, they were paganists. They were Holocaust deniers. A few things that I have jotted down here in my bullet points. They were, apart from Holocaust denial, occult and paganism, classic Nazi stuff, they were denying the 17th of November deaths, which was 17th of November 1973 was a student uprising at the Polytechnic University of Athens, which was violently suppressed by the military junta, and there some 40 or so people died. Now, denying this is a bold move when pretty much every student has that day off is at school and has like school celebrations of the bravery of those students. So it's not like, denying something where you can have like plausible deniability. My stepdad's best friend was murdered in the Polytechnic uprising. Anyway, they also had adopted the very classic mantra of the Greek right wing and monarchist factions from back in the day, which is called, I don't know if Patris Thriskia Ikogenia in Greek, which means fatherland, religion, and family. Classic fascism stuff. But then, as they started gain prominence, and well, they increased their prominence through hooliganism. They were attacking lefties in the street. They were attacking people that were parts of the LGBT community in Greece. And that, over the 90s, basically, they started gathering a small following and decided to create this political movement, basically starting in 93 with the hopes of getting into parliament and other things, which we'll discuss a little bit later. So they started to slowly rebrand just so they could gather and catch more people into their movement. So they dropped the paganism and went through with the Greek Orthodox Church and started making friends with them. They embraced metaxism, which is the ideology of the Greek fascist leader Ioannis Metaxas, who ruled Greece between 1936 and 1941. Basically before the Second World War, who is not as widely hated by Greeks because he's known as a national hero for defying the fascist Italians when they tried to invade Greece. Mm-hmm. So they picked up like a strong-arm fascist leader that wasn't as hated as, say, Hitler, because Greece suffered horrifically under the Nazis. Some 800,000 people died, horrific famine. My grandma was telling me about those things because she lived through it. Really, really nasty stuff. So they would show up in protests and rallies, and they would recruit people, and they were actually growing fairly slowly. and they were also having trouble growing because of opposition from leftist groups. Now, I should mention there are basically three main groups that opposed them actively. First of all is the Communist Party of Greece, which is a Marxist-Leninist communist party that has been around since 1918, and it's primarily occupied by Greek boomers. Okay, in Greece we have a lot of communist boomers, and basically a lot of syndicates and unions that are organized under the All Worker Militant Front, PAME, which has existed since 1999 and has around 800,000 members. Now, these guys provide armed support, not with guns, but with like clubs and primarily sticks in protests of unions. So these guys always show up to help unions not get beaten up by the police. And of course, they were also opposed to the Nazis, who also wanted to fight union members and infiltrate certain unions. And of course, there are the anarchists that also fought very bravely against the Nazis, the anti-fascist movements. And so there's a very wide anarchist movement in the suburb of Exarchia in Athens, in the center of Athens. And they organized anti-fascist motorcades in areas of Athens controlled by the Nazis. They vandalized the offices of Golden Dawn fairly regularly. And they were also showing up in Black Bloc in protests and fighting them again. And of course, I think, which is probably the most important thing that the anarchists managed to do, they basically provided a safe area in the suburb of Exarchia for immigrants, because the Golden Dawn's primary hatred and violence was directed towards them. And might I say, that's some horrific stuff that they did. They organized small pogroms where they would rush immigrant neighborhoods and smash up shops. And that's some historic stuff right there.
Yes, there's a little bit of a parallel, that we can draw.
Yeah, we can draw with the actual Nazis, because the leaders were extremely well versed in Nazi ideology. They basically followed the Nazis' footsteps basically every step of the way. They did a lot of things to gain prominence. So they kept attacking immigrants. They attacked some leftists. Say in 98 was one major case, I think, which was a Periandros case, where a leftist, I think, student was beaten and left for dead, but thankfully he survived. And the guy who assaulted him escaped to Venezuela for some reason. That's a bit of a tangent. Another small group that also fought back against those Nazis was the nihilistic anarchist groups. Which, what I mean by that is that in Greece we've had a few anarchist terror groups. Now, what do I mean by that? They are certain groups that believe very firmly in the idea of like breaking down the system with violent means, and pretty much only violent memes.
We disavow, by the way.
Yeah, we do disavow the Greek anarchists. Don't very much like them either. But stuff that they did do is bomb the offices of Golden Dawn like 4 times. They do car bombs against other buildings and rich people. They do a lot of stuff. They've targeted many politicians. It's a mess. Okay, that's we don't have that's the main terrorism we have in Greece. Small groups in general, not many, in many cases not any victims, but they did do some stuff to fight back against Golden Dawn.
Clearly, it's interesting to me, though, because if anything, this seems like an indication that those tactics don't seem to be very effective. Because the thing that eventually stopped Golden Dawn, it seems, is widespread public condemnation, along with the legal hammer. So it's from what I've seen, because every time I read these history lessons, it seems like for anti-fascist groups, violence only works if you can use so much of it that you actually stop them, because they aren't often dissuaded, you know? I think it's easier to dissuade non-fascists because fascists are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You know, you can bomb their offices and stuff. It doesn't really slow their movement down that much. It's
Yeah.
just interesting to me. Like these tactics, we see them pan out time and time again. I'm interested in the most effective ways of handling situations like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Most of the time, the Golden Dawn used the bombings as pretense for saying that we're under attack and our free speech rights are being violated, and we want the good for Greek society, and those
Right.
anarchist, anti-authority mongrels are attacking us. They did stuff like that. Now, Golden Dawn, they picked up a lot of steam after the financial crash of 2008 that hit Greece particularly hard,
Mm-hmm.
and Greece hasn't really escaped the economic crisis of that time. Greece had a GDP of 300 or so billion in 2007-8, and it dropped by a third, and unemployment skyrocketed to 20-25%. So Greece suffered tremendously, and Golden Dawn started doing PR. Basically, they started showing up and doing and organizing um, food donations and blood drives for Greeks only. What do I mean by Greeks only? Whites only, because they never really checked IDs.
There we
Greeks
go.
aren't. Yeah, they aren't exactly uniformly white either. We have a lot of Afro Greeks. We have a lot of people, a lot of immigrants that have gained citizenship. Lots of Greeks of different shades. They basically like take out the shade thing from like Family Guy, and the way if you looked white enough, they would just give you help, and if you didn't, they wouldn't. And sadly, that worked surprisingly well because many poor communities in Greece uh, easily like took up the message of Golden Dawn by saying, "Hey, we're here to help you, and those immigrants are here to take your jobs and destroy your lives." And yeah, so that was one of their effective strategies for gaining help. And another thing they did, which I think was kind of ingenious for gaining institutional power, was strongly pursued a friendship with the police. Now, what do I mean by that?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, they started doing like small kind of dirty work for Greek police. So if the police wanted to do like a raid on like an immigrant neighborhood and they didn't really want to get their hands dirty, they would send in Golden Dawn. Sometimes they would coordinate in riots, and Golden Dawn would help out the Greek police, beat up union guys and anarchists and whoever else opposed them. They would often ignore violent action from Golden Dawn, and
I'm sorry,
also,
that is insane to me. I mean,
yeah,
that would be like, so because here in America, I'm sure you know, but here in America,
yeah,
the cops are very, this is putting it simply, very light on white supremacist groups. Um,
yeah,
yeah, but the idea of like the cops being like, "Hey, we have to do this like raid. Hey, Proud Boys, you want to just like
yeah,
ride
yeah,
along?"
exactly.
That is like
It
so
is.
far beyond. Maybe implicitly that's happened from time to time, but explicitly
Yeah.
that is not something that happens over here. So the idea that things went that far is crazy to me.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because that stuff was being done primarily in poor neighborhoods. The Greek media just never really like took up with it. The Greek media was in some cases just kind of fascinated by those wacky characters that they were seeing on TV, some crazy Nazis, and they were talking about how they dressed and like what they talked about in parliament, but that's a bit later. But they did the other things. For example, because the Greek police has had a long and colorful history of, first of all, being extremely political and politically active. Ever since the times of the dictatorships, they have been cleansed 1,000 times over to be ideologically pure. By that I mean right wing.
Right.
Um, and basically they did other things such as doxing leftists and anarchists. They would threaten leftists and say, "Oh, do you want me to dox you to Golden Dawn? Don't show up in protests again." You know, stuff like that. And they often tortured lefties while they were in police custody. All of this stuff kind of covered up. The police denies it, but it's very, very well corroborated at this point. Even the very famous murder of Pavlos Visas in 2013, which kind of kick-started the investigation, there was police present at the time of the murder, and they didn't do anything to stop it. And then they denied that they were even there, which was found out kind of later that they were actually present. So they made friends with the police, and that worked, because when we had analysis of like voting blocks in 2012, once they actually got into parliament with 7% of the vote, there isn't an explicit way you can tell which profession is voting where. However, certain districts that have police stations have a lot of cops voting, and we know about how many cops vote in those places. Now, it was pretty interesting that all the surrounding places around Kesariani, which was where the main police directorate of Athens was, pulled out around 5 to 6% Golden Dawn, and Kesariani itself pulled out 23%. Now, what we can tell from that is that the around 5,000 cops that voted in Kesariani must have voted by 45 to 59% Golden Dawn to produce that outcome. So 59% of up to 59% of the cops could have voted for a Nazi party.
Yeah, that's unfortunately not super surprising to me. I'm sure that if we had a politically viable neo-Nazi party in the United States, they would also be kicking back quite a few cop votes. Maybe not union endorsements, but at the very least cop votes. What time period would we be on right now? We're post the economic crisis, so we'd be in like 2010, 11? Yeah, 2010.
Yeah. I mean, that's 2010 parliamentary elections, they had 5%, and in 2009 not the parliamentary, the EU parliament elections in 2010, they got around 5% of the vote there, and they went, and in 2009 the general election they only had 0.3%. So that was a massive increase. So so they are doing all this PR. They're making good friends with police. They're encouraging members to become friends with people in the military and high-ranking members of the police. And not only that, they're training their own paramilitary organizations and basically encouraging members to attack immigrants and leftists. So throughout the 2011, 2012, 2013, the violent action in the major cities has increased dramatically. And there was a lot of violence. There were a lot of stabbings, lots of beatings, and sadly, 2 murders, I think. That's the thing. The immigrant communities say that we would never know how many people exactly were killed, because a lot of people are documented, a lot of people were killed, and it was assumed it was something else.
Ballpark, so what ballpark are we in?
I honestly don't know. There were probably tens of people that were killed. It's hard to say, because it's Greece isn't a very big country. It's only around 10 million people, say population of Ohio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Roughly something like that. And there's really 2 major cities, Athens and Thessaloniki, and that's kind of it, really. So once you have major control over the cities and many neighborhoods in those cities, because the Nazis would always occupy a neighborhood and kind of expel immigrants and would assault leftists in those areas, and they try to take control of basically the cities, and they also try to kick out the unions. And once you have control of the cities, control of the unions, and friends in the police and military, well, what do you have? The ripe conditions for a military coup. And Greece has had like 5 of those.
Yeah, Greece was a military dictatorship up until the 70s, wasn't it?
So they were a military junta between 67 and 74, and they also had the dictatorship between 36 and 41. Those were the 2 major ones. And of course, there was the civil war between the Communist Party and the monarchists in the 40s, late 40s. But yeah, so it is pretty wild, to say the least. Because do you know what their message was? Their electoral slogan was for the May 2012 elections. Just a guess.
I'm guessing like blood and soil, probably just some overtly, openly neo-Nazi shit like that.
Oh, I got you one better. To rid the land of filth.
Oh. Hey,
yeah.
that's that actually is more overt than what I was saying.
Yeah, it's crazy, and because the political situation was volatile, lots of governing parties, mainly New Democracy, the main right-wing party, was flirting with the idea of a coalition government with Golden Dawn. That hasn't been super confirmed, but it is kind of speculated that at some points there were talks like this. And of course, like in 2012, 2013, once the assaults started getting worse, the media started to slowly take notice and talk about the increase in assaults and murders and violent action that Golden Dawn was committing in the capital and against immigrants mainly. And there was an introduction of the anti-racist law in 2013, which was basically to introduce kind of a hate speech legislation so that Golden Dawn would have trouble staying in parliament while being openly Nazi, you know.
How controversial was that law at the time?
That's the thing. It was fairly widely backed by the leftist parties. So basically Syriza, which is coalition of the radical left, the Communist Party of Greece, and at the same time it was PASOK, which is the Pan-Hellenic Socialist Movement. Don't get confused by the names. Most of them are SOCDEM. And basically, they all came together and said, okay, we're introducing this law and pushing it. And New Democracy said, no, we're not passing that law. And if it comes down to it, we'll get Golden Dawn to vote with us and defeat the anti-racist law. So because New Democracy kind of saw Golden Dawn as a political tool to advance their own. They believed that Golden Dawn would vote in their favor in legislation, so they kind of allowed them to exist. Yeah, and that's the thing. I really truly believe that the only real reason that Golden Dawn went down was that they were just a smidge too overt. They denied the Holocaust in Parliament, and that was kind of overlooked. One of their
overlooked. We can't. Yeah, can you imagine if Marjorie Taylor Greene, yeah, just went up there and oh god, yeah, what's overt here in America? I feel like we're getting cucked over here because what's overt in Greece seems to be way the fuck more overt than what overt means over here in America. I almost feel like I'm spoiled, you know?
Yeah, I mean, in some respects, you guys have way more. Like your politicians are way better at dog whistling in some respects than ours. Ours are just getting the hang of it. But you know, the main spokesperson for Golden Dawn did a lot of crazy stuff. Apart from denying the Holocaust in Parliament and quoting from the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, also in Parliament, he also slapped a communist MP on live television. Which were assault in 2012.
Wait, did he not get arrested for that?
That's another thing we should talk about. Political asylum. MPs in Greece have asylum from persecution while they're in office.
Wait, how much can you get away with?
Well, it is not extremely clear, but one of the like small time stuff like corruption charges, like stuff like that, like you probably won't get persecuted over.
So this is just the corruption law. You just get to be corrupt.
Kind of. I mean, you guys have lobbying, which is kind of like
okay. No. Okay, look, no. Okay, I'll take shots on America, but I'll not take shots. With the fuckers over there literally have diplomatic immunity to crime. What's
Yeah.
okay? At least our people, we have lobbying, sure, but at least if people are slapping each other in the halls of Congress, they get arrested.
Yeah, over here in Greece, we enjoy corruption. Okay, it's we believe it to be superior to lobbying.
Yeah, as the average lobbying fan versus the Chad, the Chad corruption enjoyer.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, you have political asylum, which was one of the other major obstacles to actually going against Golden Dawn legally. Now, one of the things that actually you can persecute against when even if there is asylum is organized crime, because Greece has organized crime. So if you manage to be an MP and you're implicated in organized crime, that's something you can actually get charged with.
That's nice.
So yeah, thankfully, right? Now, when the murder of Pavlos Fyssas happened in 2013, that was kind of a watershed moment. That was kind of an oh shit. Like the the normies in the party, because there were a lot of right wingers that kind of like joined in Golden Dawn because they were simple nationalists. Because Golden Dawn had kind of cleared their message despite the anti-Semitism, which people ignored, the media ignored. It was crazy. People didn't really talk about the open Nazism of the party, and still they had supporters from like the more normie right. But when Pavlos Fyssas were murdered, it's like murdering the guy next door. Okay, it was a bit too much. It wasn't murdering an immigrant or some faceless person, or attacking the fishermen, the Egyptian fishermen, or attacking those anarcho-commie people in the street, or attacking syndicalists. It was different. It was killing like some kind of leftist dude. And he
I've
was
said this too. This is one of the reasons why here in America as well, it's super, super important to make sure that you're allied with normies. Because in the public media, if you're like some, no offense, but if you're some like black trans woman wearing black bloc colors and you die in a protest, people are going to take one look at your picture at the protest. They're going to be like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
But if you have Doug, 45 years old, loves fishing, loves barbecuing, loves fishing, then barbecuing, out there in the protest, and he gets killed, there'll be a national mourning week for it, You have to...
Exactly. So the media immediately started like huge stories. The mother of Pavlos Fyssas, Magda Fyssa, the victim, was basically she was a lot of her pictures went around to the media of her crying and talking about her sweet boy that was killed by Golden Dawn. There was like national mourning, and Golden Dawn goes to oh shit mode because the murderer was a fairly high-ranking high-ranking member of the Piraeus section of the party, which is the port in Athens. So they immediately distanced themselves. No, we have nothing to do with this. He acted on his own. He's not. He's just another member of the party. This was quickly
what even
debunked.
Prompted the murder?
What
prompted the murder? Why?
So basically, there was a group of Fyssas was with a group of people, around another 5 or 6 people, and they were watching a football match in a suburb of Athens in a cafeteria, and they came into like conflict with 3 Golden Dawn members, and they called for backup. And suddenly there were 30 Golden Dawn members, and some people called the police. So they started having a conflict. The Fyssas group kind of tried to leave, and the Golden Dawn guys chased them away. And Fyssas got isolated from his group as they got chased away, and the Golden Dawn guys cornered him. The police wouldn't stop him because there were too many of them, or because the police didn't care. We'll never know. Right. And then this fairly high-ranking member of the party rolled up in his car, got out, and stabbed him, and he died on the spot, basically. And it was really big in the Greek news. People started talking about Golden Dawn, the murderers. Like pictures of Michaloliakos started going around of him saluting in front of a Nazi flag. Started like the swastika symbols, and like they all had like their Mein Kampf books. So the media went on a tour of saying how big Nazis the Golden Dawn really was. So Now, this basically created a political crisis in a sense, because now the opposition parties could attack the government for condoning the violence, because it wasn't the first violent incident. So the ruling like conservative party in New Democracy at the time sees this and says, well, what can we do? The majority of the members of the party are pretty much just nationalists. So we can distance ourselves by launching a criminal investigation into what happened, and basically collect on their voters later by just like swinging a little bit to the right. So a criminal investigation is launched, and the main leaders of the party are held in pretrial detention. They continue to advocate from jail, and continue to speak to the party and coordinate from the inside. Two Golden Dawn members were pretty much murdered, I think, within a week of that other murder, and it was claimed by a leftist org that nobody knows and has never been contacted since. Which
wait, what?
People,
so that wait,
yeah.
So wait, was it a? Do you think it was like a false flag then, or something?
Yeah. That's fairly widely accepted, because like the anarchists from Exarchia went, we don't know those guys. What the fuck? They had the generic like anarchist name, like we are like the anarchist People's Front, and we got retribution.
So is it commonly believed then that the Golden Dawn killed two of their own to try to take the heat off them?
Not only that, they plastered their faces all over pretty much every branch of the party and called them immortals, that they were killed by the leftist mobs, and that we are fighting a righteous cause from prison and we're being silenced. So yeah, Jesus. It's pretty widely accepted. Yeah,
I mean, really, it's not really like Nazis are, averse to killing their own for political gain. So again, this is just on so much of a higher level than American politics right now. Right now, the height of American political shenaniganry are QAnoners putting up like transphobic posters outside of their congressional offices. Not quite on this level is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, just saying, you guys should be lucky about some of your institutional integrity, because Greece is in this sorry state and we're still in the EU, right? In some respects, you guys have it well.
For now.
But, for now. Yeah, for now. Still, and maybe we have healthcare. That's probably something we also have. Sure, okay. I wouldn't say it's worth it for the Nazis, okay? Like I trading the two, probably having Nazis in government and healthcare. No, not really. I think
grass is always greener. Maybe spend some time over here, break a leg in America. We'll see.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I wouldn't want to break my leg in America, I've been hospitalized with no repercussions because of I have universal healthcare.
Sometimes in America, they'll just bill you for nothing. Like you'll just be at home and they'll just send you a bill. They just randomly do it to people.
Zombie debt thing?
No, they just make it up. They just write a number. They don't even type it. They just write a number. You have to pay it, or the police will shoot you.
Oh my! That is so. That is like so out of the pain, like so outside of like political reality for me. Like Greeks will like look at America and say, "Oh my God, those guys are crazy." They don't have healthcare. Meanwhile, a Nazi party is in parliament. It's kind of like two sides of a like kind of it's a different thing,
it's weird. Yeah, the grass is always greener. We got a diverse flavor of opportunities, no matter how you
diverse. Absolutely. But so you'd expect that the investigation would slow them down, but it really didn't, because in 2015 there was something else. Between 2013 and 2015, they continued organizing from prison. After the pretrial detention period ended, which is 18 months in Greece, you can't hold somebody for more than 18 months. There is no bail system. So they got out because the investigation hadn't even started the trial yet, because they were still gathering evidence. And not only that, the defendants of the people that were murdered decided to go all in with a big trial instead of doing little ones specifically for the murders, take down the whole thing.
Well,
So
that makes sense, especially since you
yeah.
said criminal organizations are one of the few things that you can actually get MPs on.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing. They went after them with basically Article 187 of the Penal Code, saying that they were basically running a criminal organization, and the prosecution said, not the the prosecution and the lawyers kind of said that they were masquerading as a political party where they were simply a criminal organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. They kind of acted like a mafia in many respects.
Yeah,
They
it
had
kind of
armed
sounds like it from what you're telling me.
yeah, they had armed thugs. They had engaged in a lot of illicit activities. I think. Wait, I have a small rap sheet of kind of all their illegal activities: hoarding guns, training paramilitaries, locally organized beatings, pogroms, hate crimes, vandalism against Jewish memorials and mosques. Um, Targeting of leftist groups, yeah, okay, and some attempted murders, and immigrant checkpoints. They stopped immigrants and acted as an unofficial ICE in certain neighborhoods. They said, okay, where are your papers? And then no papers, we beat you. Stuff like that.
Just a second. Sorry, Lumi rated earlier. Sorry, Lumi, I didn't see that. Thank you. Hope you're doing well. All right.
Oh, Lumiru?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yes, I'm saying hi, I guess, from over here. So they did a lot of things. So that was kind of the persecutions angle. Now, there was the immigration crisis that also helped kind of Golden Dawn. It wasn't the immigrants, of course, they are not at fault, but the Greek government's like botched response to the immigration crisis, not having enough funds to actually house them. And, they characterized it as an invasion. That sounds familiar, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The immigrant invasion. Thankfully, in 2015, the center left comes into power. Syriza, their name is the Coalition of the Radical Left, and they claim themselves to be socialists. They've mostly governed as social democrats. Anyway, 2015, they come into power and they start the trial. Actually, starting the trial on. Between the two 2015 elections. They started it in April 2015. So they kind of accelerated the whole process because why wouldn't they? Like, the Nazis are their political opponents, on a fundamental level. So they kind of, like, the whole, it kind of came together, and this is like the part where the trial begins. Golden Dawn still got 7% of the vote in the 2015 elections, both of them. They couldn't form a government, blah, 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 2 elections in 2015.
Right.
Anyway, so they went in, and so in order to avoid the restrictions of Article 127 of the Constitution, which is that you can't persecute a political party even if it's anti-democratic, they said that it's just a criminal organization masquerading as a political party. And the defense basically said those were isolated incidents, and that the prosecutors are spinning a narrative to silence them. That was basically the defense, right? There were isolated incidents. The party wasn't organizing them from the top down, but it was fairly quickly proven that those guys not only were fanatic, but they, apart from calling their leader the Führer, just in Greek, in the Greek version of Führer, which is archigos, which means leader, whatever. They called him the Führer, and there was a lot of top-down organization in the party, and a lot of kind of hits and beatings were organized by the central, leadership of the party. Kind of like, say, if the leader Michalogliakos is Hitler, it's like his buddies, his fellows, his Gorings and whatever. So they kind of came together. The defense for the victims, the victims' lawyers did a tremendous job. Honestly, I have a nice book here that I've been reading, which is written by Thanasis Kabayanis, who was one of the defendants for the fishermen that were assaulted, and that was attempted murder.
Right.
The part of Golden Dawn, and slowly the trial chugged on. A lot of them were still advocating from prison. They still said that we're being silenced, but slowly and steadily, after 2015, the party started declining in power, with their members half in between jail and not jail, the media being largely hostile towards them, and basically they were made more toxic than they even were, while in parliament. In 2019, they were eventually defeated. They fell under 3% and they left parliament. So the parties were continuously weakening.
Was there another very far right-wing party that was getting those votes, or was it just interest was falling generally?
Interest was falling generally, but the voters just went from Golden Dawn to kind of New Democracy, which is the Conservative Party, and they started becoming more anti-immigrant. They said that, oh yeah, immigrants, kind of invasion, kind of, hey, wink wink, come in our side, because there weren't that many hardcore Nazis in the Nazi party. Most of them were like conservatives and nationalists. But
that's how it always works, right? You only need the leadership to be Nazi. If you can convince like nationalists to follow you, then that's all you really need.
Absolutely. No, that is 100% true. Basically the persecution actually won. There were also allegations of collusion between certain prosecutors and Golden Dawn, because the Adamantia Economou, which was one of the prosecutors, she advocated for leniency at every step of the way. And thankfully, the panel of judges rejected her pleas for leniency. She said that it wasn't an organized thing. She basically like went back on everything, which is weird for the prosecutor to do, right? The prosecutor is supposed to prosecute. Anyway, thankfully, the judges were unsympathetic to the openly Nazi organization they had ahead of them, and they convicted them in October 2020, as being basically an openly Nazi organization. The anarchists were saying that, hey guys, we've been telling you about this since basically 2008. Why the hell? Maybe even before that, 2005. Why the hell weren't you listening? The Greek media said that it wasn't a concern back then. Yada yada yada. Basically, now the party is kind of crippled because the leadership got 13 years in prison. The leader got 14, which was +1 for weapons charges, and the main leaders got 13 years, which is one of the highest you could get. 15 years is the maximum for organized crime. So they got 13 years, and I think 2 of the MPs that got 13 years are still at large. One of them because he has asylum from the European Parliament, because he's a member of the European Parliament, which is a disgrace. And another person was kind of left to go by the police, saying that, oh, we'll have him under close watch, and he just disappeared. We don't know where he is. But apart from that, like, the party has kind of died, and most of their supporters, in order to avoid the toxic like look of the party, they went off and joined New Democracy, which won the 2019 parliamentary election for a vast number of reasons, like including the whole fiascos with bailouts and stuff like that. I think that's kind of like the core of the thing. And I've also collected a few conclusions, if you will, that
please, yes,
really important. First of all, my fellow friendly lefties from across the seas, fellow Bernie Orbasters, accelerationism is super dangerous because unlike Greece, for example, where we have a fairly large organized labor union force and radicalized leftist unions, the United States does not have that. You guys have like 7% union membership. In Greece, we have 30%. And we have like actual communist unions. You don't have that. So don't accelerate. The fascists will take over before you can blink. That is my first conclusion. It is also crucial for the survivability of Nazi movements is to be at least nominally mask off. So take their masks off any opportunity you get, because despite what it might feel like, lots of people can't actually tell like Nazis from conservatives, which is really sad. It has to be extremely overt. And even then people say, oh, they're joking. No, take their masks off as much as you can. Also, if you have an immigration crisis, deal with it as humanely as possible so that the fascists can't scapegoat them for all the troubles that your society faces. That is also extremely crucial. You need to integrate refugees, and you need to also have education about marginalized groups and LGBT issues from a young age, so that people can't just like look at immigrants and say, "Oh, those are our enemies." And also, I think my last point, fascism never goes away completely, okay? Never, ever, ever. It always lingers, and under the right conditions, it will always grow. And those conditions are usually societal trouble, whether it be economic, social, or whatever whatever causes friction in a society will help fascists grow.
I'd say I agree with all of that pretty heartily. I think a lot of people in America especially don't realize how strong our institutions really are, especially compared to a lot of other countries. That's not to say that America is good or that its institutions are good. That's certainly not what I'm saying. Only that there's enough weight to our checks and balances, enough weight to the way that our systems were constructed, that circumnavigating them is something that has to be handled lightly, and it has to be done through relatively legitimate channels. Open criminality is harder to get away with here than it is in many other places. We should take advantage of that, because very rarely are fascist organizations not criminal in nature. And one of the easiest ways you're going to move people over to the left is pointing out how obviously and plainly criminal the organizations you oppose are. I know it's cringe to be like, the fascists are bad because look, they're not following proper liberal bourgeois procedure. And you don't have to phrase it that way if you don't want to, but among other arguments, legality can be an effective one at moving liberals over. And once they're moved over, then you can make cooler arguments at them. Like, hey, look, they're dumb. Like, cool ones like that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I feel like leftists a lot of the time just feel awkward pointing out the obvious. Like what might be like obvious to us when we look at like an organ, we can tell the dog whistles and just kind of suss them out as being fascists. In order to point that out to a liberal, or let alone a conservative, takes a significant amount of effort. And it's good to have receipts of actual violence, actual murder, like actual attacks that those groups do, because they cannot contain themselves. That's something we can at least take hope in. Nazis not only are stupid, but they're also extremely aggro. Like they get ticked off by everything. They're bitch babies. They always feel the need to actually fight and attack people, and because because of that, they can't keep their masks off very well. We know that like the hypothetical Nazi party will come along, that will have the perfect mask on, will manage to sway the population, but thankfully I don't think that has happened yet, and it has a low likelihood of happening because Nazis are stupid. I think we can kind of.
That'd be my opinion of them after my after my prolonged experiences with the group. I'd definitely say so.
Yeah. Also, I have a few things that some memes I have to run
sure,
by you.
Throw them out there.
Because I have a lot of friends that are watching, and like they were rooting for me. You could say. First of all, I have to give a shout out to Rose Wrist, who beat you to the punch with this segment. I spoke to him about it, and if you want to see our Golden Dawn talk, you should go and also check Rose Wrist out, because he's a cool guy, and I really enjoy talking to him. I should shout out my Twitter. I hope I'll be posting more military history stuff or actual history. Maybe if you want to get angry at tankies, that I'm your guy, because I have a lot of history. I'll also maybe do some political stuff later. I don't know. My Twitter is Richard Haney 17 at Richard Haney 17. My friend Bill asks, Dark Souls with ContraPoints when? Really important.
Actually, it's not Dark Souls we're aiming for. It's Contra challenged me to an Age of Empires 2 battle, very very flippantly a while ago, but I intend to hold her to that. I am a legendary Viking player. I will crush her beneath my feet. She will never play an RTS again.
Another friend of mine, Thomas, asked, "What can American leftists do to connect with other lefties overseas?" I was he's. I don't know. What my opinion was join like worldwide unions was my answer, and maybe like do some subscribe to some news orgs from around the world to see what is happening in other places. I don't know if that's a valid thing.
Well, there are content creators that I think are really good at bridging that gap. I'm not great at it. There are others that are better. Rose Wrist is great about it. Dylan Burns is fantastic about it.
Oh,
If I were you, I would suggest taking a look at his content. Dylan Burns is the youngest foreign policy advisor in American history, and he does live streams. He's constantly talking about foreign affairs.
No, it's crazy because is Dylan 20 or 19?
I think Dylan's 19.
I'm older than Dylan. I can't believe it. The guy has his foreign policy on point. It's pretty crazy. I would love to talk to him at some point about whatever, really, because of military history and kind of foreign policy stuff kind of intertwine. And I've done a lot of 20th century history, not only in Europe but also some stuff in the Middle East. So I would at some point hopefully maybe send him some message or something, maybe talk to him about it. Also, my friend Carlo has been pestering me and sending me messages basically throughout this discussion, and he says to say hi to Croatia. I don't know. Hi to Croatia.
Hello,
Carlo.
Croatia. I hope you're doing well over there.
Do you have any questions?
No, you were exceedingly thorough. We're also on the hour mark, which means that I need to book it. I really appreciate you coming on. I know I delayed for a while in email. It's just because I'm a horrible person.
No worries.
I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you giving us ignorant Americans a lecture. Oh, speaking of, by the way, I made up the thing about the hospitals, okay? They don't actually just bill you out of nowhere. I apologize. I know that our system is bad enough that could be plausible, but that is not a thing that we do.
Yeah. I mean, let's be fair. How much does a hospital ride cost in the States?
$1 million.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. See, here in the wonderful land of Europe, we don't have your problems, okay? We live in a utopia. All your American viewers should know that.
Hey, don't look at me. Thanks to these guys, I can pay health insurance. I'm feeling bad for them over there, all right? Eesh.
Oh yeah, it's honestly it's tragic. I really followed Bernie Sanders in his run. I thought he was an excellent candidate, and I really hoped he would win. If it wasn't to be, I guess.
We'll get there one of these days.
I guess so.
Seriously, thank you very much for coming on. I hope you have a phenomenal day. And please keep in contact with me in the future, okay? Sure.
Maybe if you want to talk about anarchist militaries, we could talk about that because military stuff is my actual discipline. Like this Golden Dawn stuff, I've just kind of done like research out of just my interest in this.
Absolutely. I'll keep it in mind. I'm sure my chat will hold me to it too. You take care now, okay?
Thank you. Good talk. See you later.
Be well.